Hey folks, welcome back to the Wikipedia world, and I am Abhinay Gupta. And today again we are continuing with the appointment and remuneration of managerial personnel. So today we'll be covering the last two sections of the chapter that we were dealing with, right? And those two sections are section 204 and section 205. So in the previous lecture we have just covered section 203. If I give you a little brief about it, then we have covered the key managerial personnel. Right? We have seen where they're appointed, what are the restrictions, what are the companies that they have to be there, what all things have to be done, right? What are the provisions of existing company, managing directorship in two or more companies, what to be done with the vacancies, right? And who appoints the board and everything. All these things have been covered in the previous lecture. So any one of you have missed it, go and watch that back, right? And then we come down to this, which is the last lecture of this chapter. Right? So the two sections that we have, the first one is a secretarial audit for bigger companies. Right? This is section 204 of the Companies Act 2013. Right? This section says that there are certain companies for which a secretarial audit also has to be performed. Returns are being filed for small things, small individuals and companies, right? For bigger companies, we have statutory audits, we have tax audits, we have limited reviews, we have a lot of things. Now, this is something new that has popped up. Secretarial audit. None of you must have had an experience in secretarial audit. You know why? Because CAs don't do it. Right? You are not the only auditors. Even company secretaries are auditors. They perform secretarial audit. So first, what we see is a mandatory secretarial audit for certain companies. The secretarial audit has been set as a mandate as per section 204 for certain companies. Now, what are they? First, all the listed companies. You will have to get your secretarial audits done. Apart from this, every company which belong to other classes which is prescribed. And what is prescribed if we see, then any public company that have a paid up share capital of 50 crores or more has been prescribed. Or the same public company or any public company who has a turnover of 250 crores or more. All these three categories of company, it's or. They have to comply with the provisions of 204 and get a secretarial audit done for themselves, right? And these companies, when I say it is prescribed after listed, the companies which are prescribed, what prescribes these companies? It is prescribed in the rule, right? So rule number 9(1) of the company's appointment and remuneration of managerial personnel rule 2014 prescribes the other two category. Next, the secretarial audit report is to be prepared by CS in practice. Very important, right? So any company secretary who is in practice will come to them and then prepare their secretarial audit report. That means they have to get it done by a company secretary who is running its own practice or who is running their own practice, right? A company secretary that they have appointed for their compliance purpose, that company secretary cannot perform this audit. You'll have to have an external person to be a part of this audit or to prepare this audit report. So what do you do with the secretarial audit report? Every company to which this section is applying, that means all the listed companies, public companies with capital of over 50 crore, turnover of over 250 crores, they shall annex the secretarial audit report along with the board report that they send. Right? You remember board report section 134, all the contents of the board report, we have done it. We have done that in a chapter which is common in law and audit. Then secretarial audit shall be prepared in such form as may be prescribed. Now what prescribes the form is rule 9(2) of the company's appointment and remuneration of managerial personnel rule 2014 prescribes a form whose number is MR3 for this purpose. Right? So secretarial audit report is not a normal report like the audit report that we send, right? There has been a particular form. There is a particular form and the secretarial audit report has been prepared as per that form. And that form is MR3. And it will be attached to the board report of the company. Now, it is the duty of the company to give all the facilities which are required to that company secretary to perform a secretarial audit like they do it when we go. Right? So when they are performing the secretarial audit, all the related records and information that they require, the company has to facilitate them with that. And then it is the duty of the board of directors to furnish the explanations on all the qualifications that they set. Getting the point? So if this company secretary in their secretarial record, in the secretarial report, attaches a qualification, you know what a qualification is, right? As per Caro and audit report that we have seen. So what do? Is they attach qualification. And now who will be responding to the qualification? Definitely it's the board, right? So the board of directors, they shall in their board report itself, they shall give full explanation as to what are the qualifications and what are the observations that they have made and whatever the remarks have been attached in the company secretary audit report, in the secretarial audit report, I would say. That is why an annexure is attached to the board report, because the board report will also contain an explanation on all the qualification and all the observation that they have shown. Now, what if you contravene? If you contravene with the provisions of section 204, right, then you are punishable. Punishable with fine, which is minimum rupee 1 lakh and maximum of rupees 5 lakh. And any duties and functions of the directors of the company will not be affected. So that is all about section 204 of the secretarial audit of bigger companies. So these are bigger companies, they say, right? Listed companies with paid up share capital of more than 50 crores and public company with turnover of more than 250 crores, right? And there is no other rocket science in the entire section. Next we have is the function of the company secretary. And this is apparently the last section of this chapter. This is 205. We started with 196 and we'll end it at 205. Right? So let us see what's there in this section. Report to board. Yes, it is a function of the company secretary. Right? There are actually a lot of functions. First thing is, yeah, they will have to report to the board about what? About the compliances. Right? Because when the company is running, understand the board of director has to comply with a lot of things. He has to comply with the provisions of the act, has to comply with the rules that have been notified after the act, will have to comply with all the laws that are already prevailing and that is applicable on the company. So it's not necessary that a director will know all the law, right? But this is the responsibility of the company secretary. So they will report to the board as to the requirement and the compliance with the various provisions of the various acts. Apart from that, they need to ensure the compliance of the secretarial standards as well. Like we have accounting standards, right? AS1, AS2 till AS32. Then we have IFRS, we have Ind AS, right? They are accounting standards. Similarly, we have auditing standards, SA, SRE, SRS. In the same fashion, we also have secretarial standards, right? So when company secretary is performing the secretarial audit, right, apart from other compliance with law, regulation and everything, they also have to comply with the standards of the company secretary, which is the secretarial standard. And on the basis of that secretarial standard, they have to go ahead with their practice and they have to issue their report to the board. Now, if I go ahead to get into a little more detail, right, about the other duties of a company secretary, right, I did not list all of them on the screen, right? Why? Because it is not important for you to mug them up, right? If it was important for you to learn them all up, I would have given it to you on the screen, right? But just try to listen and understand the essence behind, right? So the other duties are specified in rule number 10. As it says, the discharge duties as prescribed, it is prescribed in rule number 10 of the company's appointment and remuneration of managerial personnel rule 2014. Right. So the company secretary shall also discharge certain more duties which are prescribed here. So what are they? First, they are there to provide guidance. So the directors of the company, they are not aware of all the factors that are happening, all the laws, all the regulations, all the updates, all the other acts that have been attached to the company, right? But the company secretary knows it, right? So collectively to all the directors or individually to any personal director who needs that help, who needs such guidance, right? Then it is the duty, responsibility, and the power that is to be communicated to them. Right? What is the director supposed to do? Till what extent can the director go? What is under the ambit of his power? All these things has to be known to the director, and it is the responsibility of the company secretary who has been appointed to keep the directors updated upon the same. Right? Now, if you get into a company where like you have been for audits, I assume, right? At least internship, articleship, you people must be doing. So when you go to office, when you go to a client, don't you see a company secretary ever over there? Have you ever witnessed a board meeting or something like that? Like what I have also seen, when you go ahead for a board meeting, there's somebody preparing the notes and that person will also prepare the minutes, right? So if there is any meeting that is to be conducted, then you have to be responsible for convening of the meeting. And then you will attend all the meeting, may it be of the board, may it be of any of the committee, nomination remuneration committee, or any of the committee, may it be of the general meeting of the manager or the members. You will attend all these meetings and then you will prepare the minutes of those meetings. You all know what minutes are, right? It's a brief description and highlight of what things or what topics have been discussed in the meeting and what conclusions have been reached. Then it is their responsibility to obtain approval from the board, to obtain approval from the members and from the government and any other authority that has any interference in whatever we are doing. So all the authorization, or I would say all the approvals, has to be gathered by a company secretary, right? Now there are various regulators in front of which the company has to be represented. And if somebody else has no more ideas about law, who is the best person? Definitely the company secretary, right? So company secretary represents the company before various regulators, whatever authorities are there with connection with the discharge of the duties under the act. Understood? I hope it's not being a very heavy burden on your brain. It's very simple, right? Next is to assist the board in the conduct of the affairs of the company in general. Day-to-day activities, whatever the board of directors are doing, it is the responsibility of the company secretary to assist them so that they know whether what they're doing is as per law, right? They understand what is going to be the future 6 months or 1 year down the line, right? So they will assist the board in conduct of the affairs of the company, right? They'll also assist and advise the board and ensure that corporate governance requirements and the best practices have been there in place, right? So corporate governance becomes a prime importance to the company secretary because how the corporate governance has been operating in the company, right? How are they being able to comply with all the standards and stuff, the government requirements and the best practices that are available in the market, right? All these evaluations also have to be done by the company secretary. If there are any other things that you, other duties that you need to know, right, or other duties that have been specified in the act, then you also have to do that. And if there are certain duties that have been assigned to the company secretary by the board from time to time, you also have to do that. Getting the points? So if I actually look at the duties, first is okay, report to the board, all the compliance and everything. Second is follow standard. But third, when it goes on to rule 10, it talks about a lot of things. Let the board know their duties, responsibilities, sit with the board, prepare minute, let the board know as to what are they supposed to do, let the board know as to what are legal, what is not going good. All those things they have to let them know. Right? If the company has to be represented in front of a regulator or something because they know the lot of law, so a company secretary goes and represents the company. Whatever approval and all are required, it's all being taken by the company secretary. Everything. I know that you understand what is a secretarial standard. So secretarial standards will be the standards which are issued by the Institute of Company Secretary of India, which is constituted under Section 3 of the Company Secretaries Act 1980. Right? But don't worry, it is approved by the central government. Okay? That's all for the day. And that's where the lecture comes to an end and this chapter comes to an end. And so in the next lecture, we'll start with a fresh new chapter, right? And guys, your SEBI is also in process. So very soon you'll be getting your lectures on the Security Exchange Board of India as well. So be thorough with this chapter. Whatever queries you have, you may post it down in the comments below. And there are certain case studies also that we have discussed. Now we move on to the next chapter in the next class. So I'll see you guys back with a fresh new chapter in the new class, in the new lecture next time. Till that time, bye bye, good night, thank you.